here now, and I'm super excited about being here. I'm showing you my game of it's round 7, but this is my 3rd game in the European Team Chess Championship. I'm so happy. I won today. I played against a Rozman. It was not Levy Rozman. It was Monica Rozman, WFM Monica Rozman. She was like 2100 from Slovenia. We played against Slovenia today. It was Sweden versus Slovenia. And I won my game. I was actually the only person in the team to win today, so I'm pretty happy. I'll take that. I'm very happy. Yeah, so today my time management wasn't too amazing. I probably thought for too much, but it was a very complicated position, which I'm gonna be showing you. I'm gonna be taking you through the 50 moves that my game was today and show you what happened in case you missed it, and talk about my thoughts and what I was thinking, and all that kind of stuff. But let's go ahead and do this, everybody. I'm so excited about showing you this game. I'm very excited. Let's go ahead and get right into it. So let me just go ahead and get an awesome analysis board going on over here. She played e4 in this game, which I expected her to do. I thought she would either play e4 or d4. But I thought she was going to play e4 because I thought she wanted to beat me very quickly, and I thought this was the way to do it. I thought that, because d4, let's all be frank with each other, it does lead to a little bit more boring, normal kind of solid positions. So I didn't think she was going to play it, so I had prepared more against e4. And it was so funny. I went c5. She went knight f3. I'm pretty sure she had prepared against all my Sveshnikovs or my wannabe Sveshnikovs. You guys know how I want to play a Sveshnikov, but it never ends up being a Sveshnikov, and I played wrong because I don't know the theory. Well, I thought about all that before the game, and I was like, am I gonna play? It was so funny, guys. Wait, let me show you. Let me show you. Wait, here it is. Here it is. I was literally looking at this game. I was this book. I was literally looking at this book. And I was like, am I really gonna study this whole thing before the game today? Like, am I really gonna, go through all of this? Like, I considered it, and I was looking at this book, and I was like, there's no single way I actually know what I'm doing today. Like, there's no single way I actually understand what happens, if any of this happens, because I don't know this stuff. So, like, I literally remember this morning opening this thing up, like, reading 2 pages and being like, are you kidding me? There's no chance I remember any of this before the game today. So, I decided to go ahead and play something completely random. So I actually like the position that I got. So after knight f3, I just went ahead and played knight f6. I mean, who even plays this? It was so funny, like, when I was, like, literally, like, playing this, like, seeing her face. I mean, I was like, there's no chance she has ever seen this move, I mean, like, who even plays knight f6? Like, I've never seen knight f6 because it's not a move you play. It's not that bad, though. It's really not that bad. Like, it's honestly, there's theory about it. I actually saw, the game that I got inspiration from was a 2680 who played this the other day. This is playable. Some strong grandmasters play this in classical. There was a 2680 grandmaster who played it in a classical game the other day, and I was like, you know what? If you can do it, there's no chance that this is gonna make me lose, immediately against a 2100. So I was like, if a 2600 can do it, I can do it. Yeah, I'm gonna show you. So I went knight f6. The idea is that I'm threatening this pawn. She pretty much either needs to play e5 or knight c3 to defend it. She can also play d3, but that is just like a very passive move, because you typically want to go d4. So you don't really want to go d3. It doesn't really make any sense. So knight c3 was played. She played knight c3, which, it's definitely, I think this is the main move or one of the main moves, but e5 is equally playable. E5 is maybe a little bit more aggressive, to put it that way. So knight c3, and I played d5, and, I had looked at this position in the morning, and I liked it. However, in this position specifically, the only move that I had looked at was bishop b5 check, which is the most challenging move in this position. Bishop e2, I didn't really check, which, no, sorry, wait, what did she do? No, she took here first. Sorry. So she took here first, and after knight takes, sorry. Because, yeah, I'm threatening the pawn. And now I had looked at bishop b5 check. I actually had not looked at bishop e2, which is a lot more passive. But I had looked at bishop b5 check and, going through those kind of lines. I had also looked at bishop c4. But actually, when she went bishop e2, which was a lot more passive, I thought for a second because I wasn't exactly sure about what to do. Because I figured it was going to be different from the other lines. So I was actually a little bit Yeah, and I actually didn't look at it this morning because I just thought, oh, if she plays bishop e2 here, you know, I'll be fine. But you know when you think that, oh, you'll be fine, but then in the game, you're like, wait a second, what do I play here? So she went bishop e2, which is definitely a little bit passive. I mean, her idea is just to castle. But here I just figured that I probably just want to get my pieces out as well as I can. I mean, I want to get this bishop out. I want to get this bishop out. I want to get this knight out. And I thought that the only move that, or the only piece that I definitely know where it's supposed to be is this knight. Like, this knight has to go to c6, yes or yes. Like, this knight is not going to d7 at any point because I want to kind of prevent d4. Right now, I'm kind of preventing d4 because if d4, I can take, and I mean, there's lots of, you know, extra moves. I mean, after d4, I can maybe even take here and her pawns get weird. So I'm kind of preventing d4 at this very moment. So I just thought, let me just bring out the only piece I know where it's going, and then I'll think about the rest later. And in this position, she castled. And here I was a little bit in, you know, a little bit of a dilemma. And it wasn't really a dilemma because I did have an, you know, this is an equal position. It's very playable, this position. But I wasn't sure about what to do with this bishop. Because I didn't really want to, like, move this knight. Like, maybe knight f6 I could have played and then gone e6 or whatever. But I was too bothered to move, you know, a minor piece twice. I just wanted to get my pieces out in castle. So I didn't know if I was supposed to go g6 or if I was supposed to go e6. Like, I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure out which of these moves to do. But the issue was that I thought if g6, I was afraid that this knight would come over here. And then that this pawn would be attacked. And then if I ever went b6 or something, bishop b5 would be annoying and my pieces would be kind of weird. Do you guys see what I mean? I was kind of afraid of that, so that's why I didn't go g6, but I did kind of like my bishop on this diagonal. But I just thought, you know, this stuff seems too complicated. I'm just going to play e6, bishop e7, castle, and then think about the game. So that was kind of the plan that I went for, although I'm not sure if it's the most accurate. I went e6, and in this position, I was still thinking that if d4, I'll just go knight takes c3, and she'll have, you know, kind of weird pawns. Like, my idea if d4 was to take, and then go bishop e7. Because then I thought, you know, if she takes on c5, this just kind of looks awkward. You know, bishop takes c5 and these pawns are pretty weird. So that was kind of what I was thinking. I was trying to figure out what to do with this bishop, but my plan was at some point to go bishop e7, castle, bishop f6, b6, bishop b7, and then activate the bishop through this diagonal. That was kind of the idea that I had at this point about the bishop. So that's what I wanted to do right now. But she didn't do it. She went rook e1. And then pretty quickly, I decided to go bishop e7 just so that I could castle the next move. And in this position, she went bishop b5 just to, you know, kind of put some pressure on this diagonal. She's pinning my knight and she's threatening a bit more to go d4, which is literally the only productive way she has to open up the center and get this bishop out. I mean, she wants to go d4 and get this bishop out, basically. So those were kind of the things that I was thinking about. So in this position, I thought for a minute or maybe 20. I thought this was a little bit awkward. I ended up going queen c7. I did not like, I was considering between queen c7, bishop d7, and castles. But the reason I didn't play castles was because I just didn't like bishop takes c6, pawn takes c6. I thought this was just going to be a long-term issue for me that I had these double pawns. I just didn't like this. I don't know if you can go here now. I mean, maybe now there's queen c7, but in general, I didn't like having this pawn structure for the rest of the game. So, I don't know. I mean, this is probably okay, and I knew in the game that it was probably okay, but I just didn't feel comfortable having this pawn structure. I feel like this bishop was now gonna really suck for the rest of the game. Like, this bishop might have sucked before, but now it would suck. Like, now it would be really bad. So, I didn't like it, and so then I started thinking about bishop d7, but then I ended up not liking it either because of takes, and d4. I thought that I wanted my queen actually to be in this file. Like, this bishop is actually pretty pointless right now. So I didn't really like this either. Like, I wanted, in this position, I would want my bishop to be on e6 and not on d7. Like, my bishop is actually really bad over here. And that's why I ended up going queen c7 at the end. This is the move that I chose to play in the game because I thought that then if bishop takes, then I can take with the queen. And if knight takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, I would take with the pawn, but then at least I would have this pawn structure. And I prefer that pawn structure over just having two isolated double pawns. So I thought it was pretty okay, and I thought if d4 or something, then I would just take, and then probably just castle. So I was considering all of these different moves. And I thought I ended up being pretty happy with this move. I thought queen c7 was fine. And in this position, she went, she took on d5, knight takes d5, and you know, my only move is to take back. I mean, now this rook is opening up this e file, but I mean, there's not really anything going on. Like, this is fine, you know? This is totally fine. So, I mean, I have everything defended. And in this position, she ended up going d4. And this was a pretty, you know, active move. And already here, I started thinking about the lines of castling, going pawn takes, blah, blah. And you're going to see how many tactics there were later on. I'm not even sure if this is what she should play. It felt very risky to do what she did, but she did it. Actually, during the game, I just thought if she walks into that, she's lost. Probably wasn't the case, but I was very positive about how bad her position was when I was playing this. But I think it was better than what I thought. But anyways, I'll show you in a second. But I just knew in this position that I had to castle. If I took, I was actually afraid of queen takes d4 and not knight takes, because now this pawn is under immediate attack. And if bishop e6, I just thought that, you know, there could be bishop f4 and my queen was under, you know, a lot of weird kind of things. So I didn't like this. So I thought, you know, I cannot do any of this. I need to castle. So I castled. I needed to get out of all these pins and everything. I just needed to get out of there. Like, my king had to run. And my king ran. So here she took on c5. And after d takes c5, I considered several moves. First, I considered saving this pawn. I considered going bishop e6. But bishop e6, I wasn't sure about because I thought bishop e3 and I thought this pawn was going to stay there for too long. I didn't like that that pawn was staying. In fact, I hated it. I didn't want that pawn to stay. I didn't see how to continue my attacks. I didn't like that. And say, I thought if rook d8, I thought same thing, bishop e3, d4. And now this bishop is kind of, I mean, I don't really know. Like, I thought that even the bishop can just go to g5 or something. And I don't know how to take back this pawn. It's just going to be too awkward for me. So I just didn't really like this. So I decided to not go for that. So I just thought, you know, I need to take on c5 and hope that she cannot take on d5. And I really did not think she was going to take on d5. I thought that it was too risky to take on d5. Like, I thought that if she took on d5, she would have to, you know, like, she would actually have to, like, think about that for, like, a very long time. And she didn't think about it for, like, so long. So I was very surprised that she took on d5. Like, it was a very, what's it called? Yeah, it was a very risky move because I have so much play after queen takes d5. So I'm giving away a pawn, but at the same time, there's a lot of play here. So I considered two moves. I considered queen b6 and knight b4. And queen b6, what I was thinking was bishop e3. The idea of queen b6 is that I'm threatening to take on f2. I'm also threatening to take this bishop. Thank you so much, Ego. Thank you so much for the prime. Thank you. So this was the first move that I thought about, but I immediately thought there was bishop e3. And in this position, I considered taking, and then going knight b4. And then, you know, whenever the queen went somewhere, my idea was to, okay, maybe not there, because then you blunder a piece, but let's say queen c4, then take on c2, queen takes, and queen here. And I thought this was equal. I kind of looked at this position in my head, and I just decided this is equal, but I didn't think that this was spicy enough. I thought this was boring. Like, I was like, you know, this rook is pretty active. This rook is going to go to b3 or whatever. I mean, I have bishop e6, but, you know, maybe this knight comes up. I thought this wasn't spicy enough. So I didn't like it, you know? So I decided to not go for this because I saw this position and I thought this was, you know, just too equal. So I thought that I was going to spicy things up a little bit by going knight b4. And the idea of knight b4 is very simple. It's that I'm threatening this queen. I'm also threatening knight takes c2. And there's actually a lot of very pretty lines here. So let's say that she, for instance, she decided to go queen c4. And I wasn't really... At first, I did not think this move worked. You know, when I calculated knight b4, I was like, queen c4 doesn't work because, you know, because of a6, bishop a4, bishop takes f2, and I win the queen. So that was my very, you know, simple analysis with queen c4. Obviously, I should have thought about it more. When I played knight b4, I did not. I actually just thought about it when she actually played queen c4. I realized that a6, there's bishop e3, but I'll get back to that. So I thought if queen e4, my plan in this position was to go queen b6, threatening the bishop, threatening on f2. And, you know, I thought if queen e2 or something, then I thought that I would just go bishop g4. This is my plan. Or no, actually, no, sorry. Then my plan was actually to go, was it bishop g4 or was it bishop f5? I think it was bishop g4. Yeah, bishop g4. And I just thought that I had a great position here. Like, you know, I'm a pawn down, but just look at all my pieces. My pieces are so active here. I just thought this was so good. I'm threatening to take, and then pawn takes needs to be played, but then there's maybe queen check, knight takes c2. I thought this was great. So this is the stuff that I looked at during the game. But yeah, once again, she didn't ended up playing something else. After queen takes d5, knight b4, she went queen c4. She's defending this bishop, and she's kind of threatening bishop f4. And in this position, I thought for a second, I wasn't sure. I knew that my initial idea was to go a6, but I immediately, after I gave it a little bit of time, I was like, Anna, you want to play a6? Anna, sit on your hands and just figure out why a6 doesn't win on the spot, because you're playing against a strong player. She's not going to blunder this. Like, you know, she obviously sees a reason for why this doesn't work. So, and obviously then, you know, after a minute, I realized that bishop e3 is just a very, you know, just saves everything. And that's when I started to calculate all this, and I realized that this was a very forcing line. And I ended up going for this because I thought for like 20 minutes here, and I just, for some reason, it just kind of felt more comfortable to actually know what was gonna happen. I actually could calculate this for like 10 moves, like, you know, in the future. So I felt like this was a lot more, or 10, maybe like 5 or 6 or 7. But therefore, that's why I went for this, because this was the most forcing line. Sometimes it's not good to go for a forcing line, but when it was such a messy position where I was a pawn down, I actually didn't want to go for a forcing line. So that's kind of what I was thinking. But I was a bit upset that I was going to enter an endgame. Like, I immediately saw that this was an endgame. And, you know, NSC endgames. I didn't 100% trust my endgame abilities. Like, I trust my tactical calculation stuff so much more than my endgames. I haven't done endgames in so long. Like, I don't study endgames. I haven't studied endgames in so long. I was a bit worried about me entering an endgame. But, so I wasn't too happy about entering an equal endgame, but I thought it was fine because I actually liked my position. I liked the fact that I was going to be bishop and rook versus rook and knight. So, and now it's all forced. I need to get into this endgame. So, a takes b5, bishop takes c5, pawn takes queen. This is all very... Sorry. You need to take here with the queen to avoid that exact thing. So, yeah. So, takes, knight takes c2. I mean, this is what I mean. This is what I mean. This is what I mean. Knight takes c2. And, you know, now it's just going to be relatively equal because, you know, it's equal material. It's equal pawns. Threatening, you know, I have a fork here, so I'm going to be winning an exchange. She's winning an exchange. And in this position, I realized a very big thing, which was how much stronger I believe it is to take first on f8 instead of taking knight takes e1. When I calculated way back this whole variation after a6, I saw all of this. I just calculated knight takes e1, rook takes e1, king takes f8, and then, you know, the knight coming up to d4. And I thought that, you know, white had a relatively active position. I realized how much better it was to go king takes f8 for my endgame, actually. So I actually thought that this was pretty good. I'm actually quite happy about this move. Because now, you know, yes, I mean, you know, objectively might be relatively similar, but I'm actually going to be in some lines a tempo up. So I actually really like the fact that I had that extra tempo. My king always needs to go here anyways. And right now, this rook cannot move because then this pawn is hanging. And if you now go a3, I have b4 immediately, which is a very strong move. So I thought this was actually very cool. So yeah, so she went rook ac1. And here I need to take here, of course. Knight takes e1. If she takes rook takes, then I am taking the pawn on a2. So then I'm just going to be a pawn up. And in this position, I thought for a second because I was trying to like calculate different lines. I was looking at different lines over here. There were so many different move orders here. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but basically the difference is that if I take on e1, in this position and takes, you can just go a3 here. And, you know, it's not really the same thing. I mean, now this rook is active. This knight is going to be relatively active. Whereas now you're losing basically a tempo. In this position, you're basically losing a tempo because you cannot really, you know, if you move this rook somewhere active, I'm just going to take this one. So you need to kind of wait around a little bit. Yeah, but she went rook ac1 just to force me to take here. Takes, knight takes, and now I cannot take on a2 because my bishop is hanging. Yeah. So, oh, thank you, Smithy, for 141 bits. So, yeah, so I couldn't really take her now because then my bishop is hanging. So I need to get this bishop out. And I was actually considering for quite a while if I should go bishop e6 or bishop f5. And these two moves are probably relatively similar. But my idea of going bishop f5 was that I thought that this was pretty cool, because if now, for instance, a3, b4, I thought that this was very interesting because rook a2, now you cannot really defend this pawn. Only move is b3, and then I thought rook b2, and I thought that this was pretty interesting. Because now I'm really stopping this knight from getting into the game this way. So yeah. So that's what I was thinking, so that's why I went bishop f5. Then I also thought that if she goes rook c5, I actually wanted her to go rook c5, because then I actually got my bishop out with the tempo. And then her rook is actually worse here than over here, because she has so many issues with her back rank right now that her knight and king are in the same file. So I actually thought that this was pretty good. I was pretty happy. I mean, that was one idea. One idea of bishop f5 was also to have her play rook c5, because then I could just go bishop d7. And I thought that, you know, I'm going to have a little bit of play on this a file, basically. I got relatively low on time around here, yeah, which was really bad. I had like 16 minutes at move 20. It's horrible. You're supposed to have at least 40 minutes at move 20. And that's if you played a slowed game. It was actually really bad how little time I had. I thought way too much in the middle game. I thought it was, yeah, I thought for way too long. It wasn't good. But, you know, there's a little bit of play, because now, you know, she needs to go a3. And here I have b4. And the idea of b4 is that if you take this pawn, then I'm going rook a1. And if you go king f1, well, then actually I'm going to have b6. You need to stay in this file, because if you go somewhere else, I'm going to have checkmate on b5 pretty much. Like, let's say you go rook here, then I have bishop b5 check. And this is just going to be a checkmate. So you need to stay on this file. So I was thinking about b6 in this position, and then, you know, rook e5. I'm basically just going to have rook b1, and then if you ever go rook e2, I have bishop over here winning the game. So I was thinking about this position, so I thought that if she took on b4, this was going to be pretty bad for her. So so she went knight c2, and if I'm going to be completely honest, I did not see knight c2. Like, I thought for like 10 minutes over here, she played knight c2, and I was like, where did that knight come from? I did not see knight c2 at all. I was like, what is happening? Like, where did that move come from, you know? Like, I had no idea about how that knight got there. But, you know, after this, I thought wow. I thought that b takes a3 was the only move. Now I'm seeing with the engine, I haven't analyzed this game before. b3, I actually had then, you know, knight d4, I had rook takes a3 and then push. Man, I missed that I was winning a pawn there. I missed that I was winning a pawn there. I did not see that. I completely missed it. And there's no way of stopping the promotion. Wow, I just missed it. I didn't see it during the game. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, that was a tactic miss. I didn't see it at all. I didn't even consider this. I didn't consider it at all. Anyway, so pawn takes. She went for b takes. If knight takes, I thought that this might be a little bit better. I thought this was a little bit harder. I thought that this pawn on a3 could become a weakness for her in the future. In this position, I was considering going b5, but I don't even know if it's good. I was planning on playing this. Ideas that she cannot take because of the checkmate, but that's what I was thinking during the game. I don't even know. Ideas to push b4, if h3 or something. I thought, you know, maybe king e7, then maybe going up. I wasn't sure, actually. I wasn't sure. I mean, here, if knight takes, this doesn't work because of rook here as well. This didn't really work. No, rook e5, then we just have... Actually, why does this not work? The rook d5. And king h2. Whoops, sorry. King h2. Wow, that's nice. And I'm losing this piece because b4 I cannot stop it. I actually cannot stop it. Wow. That is actually crazy. Yeah, that is actually crazy. Very nice, actually, very nice. Anyway, so but king f8 would win the game. I wasn't really thinking about that, but because she didn't take it with the knight, she took it with the pawn. But I was happy when she took with the pawn. I thought that this might be a long-term weakness. So I was considering going rook c8. I immediately saw that I liked the endgame of king and bishop versus king and knight. I thought that it was probably a draw, but I thought that it was a bit better. I thought that if somebody was pushing for a win in that endgame, it was me, because I could get my king up to b3 at some point. And that pawn would be pretty weak. So I immediately saw that I liked it, but I also thought that I wanted to gain a tempo before. I felt like right now I didn't have to exchange immediately, because if I exchange immediately, then, you know, the king would just start walking, etc. I thought that if I went king e7, she was probably not going to go king f1, because it was a bit dangerous to put the king. Or maybe it's not. It's not dangerous, but I don't know. I just thought she wouldn't play king f1 for some reason. Because I thought that then maybe I could go bishop a4, get my rooks in or something. I wasn't sure. But yeah, I guess she should just do that. But I went king e7 at least to try to gain a little tempo. And when she went f3, I mean, it was pretty obvious that I had gained a tempo. It was better to go rook c8 now than what it was before. So in this position, it was clear to me that I had to go rook c8 and try to enter this endgame. Because if I go king d6 and rook c3, now it's not going to be forced to exchange rooks anymore. Because if I ever go rook c8, she just has rook d3, rook d2, and her pieces aren't as cramped as they would be otherwise. Anyway, so king e7, f3, and now I went rook c8. And I just am able to exchange rooks there. I mean, there's not really a lot that she can do if she goes rook e5, which is the only move to not exchange rooks, as, you know, if she goes anywhere else, the knight is hanging, then I'm just gonna go king d6, rook e2, rook c3, and now she's very pushed back, you know? All her pieces are kind of stuck. This knight can't move because this pawn is hanging, this pawn can't push. And this is not that nice, to be honest. I thought that she wouldn't get into this. I mean, this is just very comfortable for black. Black is just a lot more active. So rook c8, she had to pretty much takes, and she went king f2, which made a lot of sense. But yeah, so king f2, and then I went king d6. I need to get my king out. And it was very nice because I, when I entered all this after, like when I played rook c8, I saw that I calculated this. And if my opponent was able to play king d3, their problems will be solved because I wouldn't be able to enter the queen side. And that's why it's also so nice that I gained this tempo with king e7. But this move just loses on the spot because of bishop f5 check. And this endgame is actually lost for, it should be lost for white, this king and pawn endgame, because I'm going to be taking this pawn. I mean, I don't, you know, the engine is saying this minus 1.67. I think the engine is very wrong. I think this is like, this could be like minus 20, you know? I mean, this should just be dead loss for white because this king will enter. This pawn is going to be hanging and you're going to be in a position where your king is up, or you're not going to be able to defend this pawn. Or you're, you know, if the king goes too much over here, you're just going to be able to pick everything up. So this is just dead loss for white if you enter this. Let's see. So in this position, I think she realized that too. And I believe she went king e4. And now I had to make a decision. There was quite a bit of calculation here. I wasn't sure about how this was. But I thought that I wanted to get into this pawn and try to take it as fast as possible. So I went king c4 because I wanted to go king b3. But this actually required a bit of calculation. And at this point, I didn't have all the time in the world. I think I had like 5 minutes. So I was really calculating most of the time when she was thinking. Like the moment she was thinking, that's when all my calculation went. If she would have blitzed it out over here, I would have been in a lot of time trouble because I would actually have had to think during my time. I thought most of the time during hers because there was a lot of calculation here. There were some crazy lines. I think she went g4 over here, but which I was pretty happy about. But no, sorry, she went knight d4 first. Yeah, she went knight d4 in this position first. She went knight d4, stopping me from going king b3. But this is pretty crazy because I, at this point, knew what was going to happen. I knew that I was going to get this pawn because there's always this, you know, king c3, king b2, king takes a3. But I knew she was going to take my pawns over here, right? So, literally my thought process was, Anna, you got to take this pawn, probably sack your g pawn, and hope that you can find a way for this knight to not come back and stop your b pawn, or at least that it'll be a 3 versus, 3 versus 2 on this side, and you're going to be able to defend. Because I was not calculating everything properly. I did not have enough time to calculate everything properly. So I wasn't sure how this endgame was whatsoever. I was praying a little bit in this position. But I thought that I had to do this. So knight d4, the issue is that if I go king c3, she is going to have knight b5 check and then knight d6. So I thought bishop d7 made sense because of that. Because I wanted to prepare king c3, king b2 and take this pawn. Did you feel like you were winning at this point? At this point, I thought I was either winning or losing. I actually did not think this was going to end up a draw. I thought that either, because from my intuition, I thought I was better. But I also thought that this is an endgame that's going to be very, 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 it's going to be down to the very minimum. Like, I need to calculate this. And, you know, frankly, I have 1 minute at this point and she has like 25. So You know, and she's a strong player. Like, no matter, you know, even if I felt like, you know, I was better in this game, I still felt like, you know, 25 minutes of calculation versus 1 minute, you know, she's gonna have better chances here. So, and I knew that, like, I realized that. So, I wasn't really, it was an endgame that required precision, exactly. And she went g4 here, and I wasn't sure about this move. I thought she was gonna go king e5 immediately and king d6. I was looking at this line, king d5. And I wasn't sure here about what to do. Because I thought if this, there's king d6, bishop a4, knight f5. And, you know, I was trying to calculate all this, and I had no idea how this was. King b2 takes. I didn't know if I was supposed... I thought maybe g6 now that this king is over here, because now there's no knight d6. So I thought maybe knight h6, and then I thought maybe f5. But I wasn't sure about how this position was. I thought I was better, but I wasn't sure. So this is really interesting. Okay, yeah, so she went f4. That's what I thought. She went f4. I guess it was because she wanted to avoid these kind of moves. At some point, and here I started going king c3. She has to go king e5. I went... Did she go for this? Yeah, I went king b2. And she went knight f5. Exactly, threatening this pawn. And here, I just thought, you know, I gotta take this, and then I just need to pray. So knight takes g7. I wasn't sure if I should go b5 or bishop c2. The reason why I did not go b5 was because I saw knight f5. And then I saw that after b4, this knight would go up to d4. And I didn't see how I would ever remove this knight from here. And I wasn't really sure what happened. I thought that if I, for instance, go b3, there's just knight takes b3. And I thought this was a draw. Because my king is too far away in this position. I thought this was just a dead draw. So I didn't like this, which is why I didn't play it. I didn't go b5, b4 because of this. So I decided to not allow the knight to go to d4. I thought this knight was very strong over here, always defending everything. So I went bishop c2 to stop the knight from going knight f5, knight d4. And I really like this move. I really like bishop c2. And then you need to go knight e8 basically, just to, you know, start pushing. But now this knight is a little bit more useless than what it was on f5, you know? Yeah, so after knight e8, now I thought, you know, I need to start pushing. So I went b5, knight d6. I didn't want to allow any knight takes b5. So I went, I kept pushing. I went b4, and this position, I think she played king d4. Yeah, she went back with the king. Everything that was going back with the king made me happy because, I mean, I didn't think that she could go like king f6 and start taking all this, but I was a little bit worried that this knight could sack itself for this pawn and this king would just take this pawn, because then I knew I was lost. Like if I lost this pawn and I was just bishop and pawn versus these three pawns, I was lost because my king was too far away. So I was a little bit worried. So everything that was the king, you know, going to the other side, to my, like, you know, going to that side of the board, I was just happy because I was like, at least then the king is not taking my pawns. Let's see. Yeah, so king d4, king d4. And I think in this position I kept pushing. I'm actually not sure. I just wanted to keep on pushing. I thought she was gonna go knight c4 in this position, knight c4 check, and then I was thinking king b3, knight a5, and you know, this was my idea. But once again, I mean, I wasn't sure because I thought if I ever go b3 now, she might be able to take. So I was a bit worried about this. Like maybe she should have gone for this to try to save a draw or something. But yeah, I mean, king d4, I mean, engine-wise, it was okay. But I was more worried about all this, to be honest. But knight c4 here, I thought she was going to play. She played king d4. And I think I kept pushing, right? I think I kept pushing. I mean, what am I going to do apart from push? So anyway, so b3, I thought that I just need to keep on pushing. Like, what's my pawn going to do over here? I believe she went knight c4 check. And I mean, the only move that I have... Okay, maybe I have king b4 to stop this. I thought that the only move I had was king a2 and just hope and pray that, you know, I have some stuff going on here. Wait, was this the position? I'm confused. Nah, she probably went king c3 first. She went king c3 first before knight c4. Yeah, she went king c3 first. For a moment during the game, I thought that I could go b2. Because then if, like, no takes, I have king a2. But then I realized that there's just knight c4 check, and then I'm losing this pawn, right? But for a moment, I thought I had b2. I thought that was kind of nice. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so b3... And she went knight c, king a2. I went knight c4. And now I am bishop d1 because I wanted to put some pressure over here, and this should be a draw. Like, I in this position, I thought I was gonna draw. I didn't see how to go forward. The only thing that I saw, I mean, she went g5. And the only thing that I could think of was that after bishop here and knight b2, I wasn't sure if after king a3, there was any chance of getting her into a zugzwang at some point. I thought that if I can get her into a zugzwang, that would be amazing, because actually this king or knight cannot go anywhere. So this is the only idea that I have. Now I'm saying that it's not possible. Actually, h3 loses, but h4 is a draw because of the tempo. So this is my only idea. I thought that, because I thought she was going to go knight b2 and block the pawn, and then I thought I'll go king h3. And at least this knight and king cannot go anywhere. She can never go knight c4, because then I take, and then I just make a queen. So, yeah, so this is what I was thinking. But, I mean, I really wasn't sure about what I could do. Anyway, she made a huge blunder. This is a huge blunder, knight d2. And this basically just, this is the move that lost the game for her, I think. I think if she would have gone knight b2, I mean, obviously I still had that little trick, but as long as she went h4, it would have been a draw. So I think this is her big mistake during the game. Yeah. So, yeah, I think so. I think that this was the very defining moment of the game. And the moment she went knight d2, I was like, I was so confused, because I was like, I mean, what happens after b2? Like, you know, what's going on here? You know, I just didn't understand. Like, I was so confused. What did she do? Oh, she went h4. Yeah, she went h4, and here I took some time. Because I just wanted to think about this. I wasn't sure if it was better to start with something like bishop h5 or to start with this. But at the end of the day, I thought that the most important thing for me is to bring in my king as soon as possible. And there's no reason to give her some extra tempos with the pawns or whatever. Or king tempos. It's just better to do this. And I actually calculated all this. And in this position, I knew I was winning. I just calculated this and I couldn't see any way of her to save it. So what I calculated was that if king d4, king c2, king a5, king here, king f6, bishop h5, king g7, king e4. I wanted to defend this pawn. This pawn was more important than this one. King takes h7, king takes f4, and I calculated that after king h6, I have king g4, which is a winning move. Because now the king needs to go back, and I'll be taking this, and then I'll take this one, and then I'll be pushing. So king here, then I have king here. So this is what I calculated during the game. I thought for like 15 minutes, and I figured all this out, and I realized that when her king was not joining like fast enough, I just realized this was just incredibly winning. So I calculated all this during the game. And then I just knew it was winning. There was no way of saving this. I was also thinking, you know, what happens if she starts with a move like this? And I just thought I'd go bishop h5, and it's going to be the same thing. This bishop is always defending this pawn. King here, king g7, I take here, and I always end up having king g4. So yeah. So I basically, yeah, I basically always saw this. I always saw king g4, but that is what I'm trying to say, is that if my king would not have gone to g4, if my king would have maximum gone into f4, it would have been a draw, because then there was time for king h6, and my bishop would have to go to some random place, and then there would be g6. Because if bishop g6, there's h5. So actually my king was right in time to win this game. One tempo down, and it's a draw. And she went here. She went king up. I think she went f5 or something. Bishop h5. I mean, I was just going for my same plan. I knew that my bishop wanted to be here. Whenever the king went somewhere, I would bring my king up. So, you know, king f4 she went. I mean, once again, if king f6, I just have king e4. So king f4, then king d4, I thought. And if f6, my plan was just to go king here. And I'm just gonna be picking, I mean, because now my bishop is blocking anything, there's nothing. There's always gonna be 6-1 positions, and my king is gonna take all the pawns. So, But she didn't do it. She tried to go for the last trick. So she went for g6. And of course, in this position, I cannot take like this. Or maybe I can, but, you know, it's very unnecessary. f6, king d5. It's a little bit unnecessary, although it's still winning. But, you know, I mean, there's no point, you know? But this is still winning. But g6, I mean, simply to just take with the h-pawn. King g5 and king e5. And she took here because, you know, if, I mean, even bishop, I mean, it's crazy, anything wins. Even bishop takes g6 wins, but the easiest is to just take with the pawn. And then if king h6, there's just king f4, and she's going to be dropping this pawn, and I'm going to be promoting. So that is just basically that. There's no way of saving this. There's no way of saving this. So, yeah, that was the game, everybody. Thank you, guys. That was the game. I'm really happy with this game. I think I played it well. I missed the b3 tactic. I think that my calculations are pretty good anyways, but I missed the b3 tactic. I should have seen me. But whatever, I'm pretty happy with the game.